Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Watkins. I am District Engineer of MoDOT's Central District, and I'm excited to welcome you here today as we kick off the beginning of a really exciting project, one that's just beginning to take shape here in Central Missouri. You know, the construction of the Rocheport Bridge has been on this area's wish list for quite some time, and thanks to the hard work of many of you here today, it's no longer just a wish. So joining me today is MoDOT Director Patrick McKenna, Senator Roy Blunt, Governor Mike Parson, Senator Caleb Rowden, Representative Chuck Basie, Columbia Mayor Brian Treese, and Boone County Presiding Commissioner Dan Atwell. We do have several other elected officials from Boone and Cooper County with us today, and I do want to recognize them. They include Representative Sherry Tolson-Reich, Representative Sarah Walsh, and Representative Kip Kendrick. I'd also like to recognize Cooper County Presiding Commissioner Don Bargary and the Chief Executive Officer of the MU Health Care, Jonathan Cookright, is also in the audience today. And finally, we're delighted to have representatives with us from the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, including the chairman, Matt Garrett. I want to thank all of you for your support for this very important project. In terms of support, I think the most active and ardent supporter of this project of replacing the Rocheport Bridge is MoDOT Director Patrick McKenna, and I'd like to invite him forward to share a few comments at this time.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle's been our Central District Engineer now for about 2 weeks, and we just said, hey, why don't you come in and replace the Rocheport Bridge? So Michelle's going to be responsible for that. She's a 30-year MoDOT employee, and we're really thrilled that you've taken on this responsibility. I'm really excited to be here today as we mark the progress that's been made in making a new Rocheport Bridge a reality. Just a few short months ago, we were facing a far less promising option, but the only one we had, rehabilitation of the bridge. That work would have taken up to 9 months and had a devastating impact not only on the surrounding communities, but the entire state and region. We were predicting snarled traffic in both directions that could have resulted in delays of 3 to 8 hours. Those delays would have been intolerable for cross-country travelers, businesses, and local residents. Thanks to a number of key players who are with us today, we no longer have to worry about merely fixing the old bridge and making do for another 10 years. Instead, we're underway with plans for a new structure. I want to thank Senator Roy Blunt and Governor Mike Parson for their support and help in securing funding for a new Rocheport Bridge. The money from a competitively secured infra grant will not only allow us to replace the bridge, but it'll trigger a bonding program that'll repair or replace an additional 215 bridges throughout the state. You know, our governor has been a strong proponent of investing in infrastructure since becoming governor in June of 2018. Thanks to him, Missouri is really on a roll when it comes to making progress in shoring up our aging roads and bridges. He's dedicated himself to infrastructure and workforce development from day one, and he's never wavered. Working with Missouri legislators, he secured $50 million of funding for 45 of the state's poorest bridges that will be repaired or replaced under his Focus on Bridges program. That same legislation also provided the mechanism to sell bonds to finance the repair of the additional 215 bridges I mentioned. Governor Parson, I want to thank you for your support and for being here to say a few words. It's really my pleasure to introduce you, our 57th governor of the state of Missouri, the Honorable Mike Parson.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much, Patrick. What an exciting day for everybody to be here today, and so many people have been involved for this project. And I do want to thank Patrick, the director, for his efforts in making this also, and his employees for working hard to make this come true. One of the things I think he would tell you if you had a chance to talk to him one-on-one sometimes, they would tell me about these projects, and I had to learn about Rocheport Bridge when I first became governor, the importance of it, and why everybody wanted this done so much. And one of the things I talked to him about, and as I talk to my directors all the time, it's more of a thing like, how do we get it done? How do we work to get it accomplished at the things that's so important to the state of Missouri? The bridge we're talking about today is definitely something with the commissioners who are here, the people from Columbia, the people in this very near communities. But this bridge is truly about the state of Missouri. It's not about just one part. It's about a lifeblood, a lifeline that we have going across the state of Missouri when you look at I-70 and the transportation, the economic growth that has for our state. For infrastructure and workforce development to work, you have to have the infrastructure in place to be successful. That's why this bridge is so important. Second thing I want to mention about this also is that by doing this bridge and for the help that we got from the federal government, it allows us to do so many more projects across the state of Missouri, just not here. So this is a win-win for every citizen in the state and the accomplishments that we're going to make. I also want to just compliment the legislators that worked together last year, both the Democrats and Republicans, to work together to get this process done. These are the kind of things that I think we all need to focus on and work together to realize this is what's important for Missouri. This is not about politics, this is about doing the right thing for the future of our state. And when you do the right thing and you work hard, you have the opportunity to be successful, and that's why we're all here today, to see this happen. And if you can imagine that when the Director McKenna mentioned the reproduction of this bridge, or the reconstruction of the bridge, if we'd had to keep it, the other thing they told me, it would be a 24 to 25 mile backup on I-70. The reality of that would be devastating to our state. But all that being said, for all the work the legislators done, everything we did in the state, this would not have been possible if it hadn't been done. We hadn't got the help from the federal government. I went to Washington, D.C. early on as the governor, and I sat down with Senator Blunt and the deputy secretaries of the Department of Transportation and said, what is it we need to do? Is this possible? Can we get it done? And if it hadn't been for him, if it hadn't been for that meeting and with our delegation in D.C., we all wouldn't be standing here today. So the example I'd like to leave with that is saying that when the state and the federal government and the local levels work together, we can accomplish things for a higher good and for a better cause when we all work together to make something better for this state. And this is a perfect example, this Rocheport Bridge project. And again, it would not have been done if it hadn't been for Senator Blunt, for the efforts that he done in Washington, D.C. to get this matching money, this infra grant money that we got to make this happen. So with that, and needless to say, all the other things that he's doing for our state across the state of Missouri is something we should all be proud of, to have that senior leadership in the Senate in Washington, D.C. to see good things happen. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our United States Senator, Roy Blunt.
Well, thank you, Governor. Great to be here, and great to be here with you. When Mike Parson was a state senator and a state representative and the lieutenant governor, he did talk about anything more than he talked about the importance of transportation. Every member of the legislature that's here is probably tired of me saying to them, if you took a river map of America and a highway map of America and a railroad map of America, and on any of those three maps, you just pointed to where those maps logically come together, you'd be pointing where we live. The governor and I both occasionally say the biggest advantage we have where we live is where we live. Location really matters to us. It is our competitive advantage, and most of that competitive advantage is the way that the transportation systems can and do come together. So we're standing right here on the banks of one of our great rivers. We have this bridge to the background that both the director and the governor have explained what would have happened if this didn't happen. Now, if that would have happened, of course, the person to blame would always be the governor, so thank goodness we're not going to do that. And then after the legislature passed the bill they passed, that there'd be a $300 million bond issue if we could get a reasonable amount of federal funding to go with it without defining what that was. I kept reading these articles where Caleb and others were saying, we believe Senator Blunt can get this money for us. That also seemed to me a big trap that I was about to walk into. So I was glad when the governor came up. We couldn't meet with the secretary that day, but we had the three assistant deputy secretaries come over, sat down in my conference room, Harry Truman's old Senate office and his vice presidential office, and had a chance for the governor to explain how if there ever was a project of national significance, this was it. That all of this traffic that goes through here every day is a lot of the commercial lifeblood of the country. There aren't real alternatives, so we'd be looking at these huge backups. And according to our leader at MoDOT, if we did this 10 years from now, we'd have to do it again if all we did was repair that bridge. Fortunately, we were able to be competitive. Our whole congressional delegation, particularly Sam Graves, who is the top Republican on the Transportation Committee, and if there's any committee in the history of the Congress to be the head of the other side, the minority side, it's that committee. It's always been very bipartisan. The majority gets a little more say than the minority, but the minority still has a lot of influence, and so Sam was there to do that. Our congressional delegation worked. There was $800 million to divide up in the whole country, and we were able to get a little over 80 million of that 800 million for this one project. Based on what all of my friends are telling me here, we're going to be able to leverage that into lots of other ways to take the 80 million, the 300 million, some other money that's available if you have matching money, and do a lot of what we need to do to begin to take more advantage of where we live, to begin to take more advantage of our competitive advantage, which is transportation. The City of Columbia obviously stepped up and put both money on the table and their effort behind this. Boone County and Cooper County both could put county money behind this. When you see that kind of thing begin to happen, there must be some significant reason to get this done. Like, I met with the Secretary of Transportation 4 different times on this, and it finally got to where the last time she said, I know why you're here, the Rocheport Bridge. And fortunately that all worked out. But what now the state will be able to do with that money, and I think frankly as we step up and do what we ought to do in transportation, Missourians are going to begin to see the difference it really makes, again, if we take advantage of where we live. And this is exactly the way to do that. So Governor, thanks for your leadership, the legislative leadership, the county and city leadership, and I look forward to seeing just how much magic that you could do with this money, and you use it many different ways. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you all. I would say, things to repeat myself, the effort that the governor made as lieutenant governor, as a state legislator, and then as governor to bring all of this together, critically important. I think you can't understand Missouri as we've had a chance to do and not understand that our biggest single advantage is where we live and then making the most of that. We're standing right here on the banks of one of our great assets, the river system, sometimes a challenge, but also a great economic asset. The interstate highways come together in unique ways where we live. The second and third biggest railroad exchanges in America are in Kansas City and St. Louis, and figuring out how to make all of that work in a way where it works most effectively together is the way to compete. Like the international price of grain is the international price of grain, less what it costs you to get it there. If you can get a product there cheaper than anybody else, you're more competitive, you have more opportunity for profit, you have more opportunity to come back next year and do even more. The governor understands that. His pick for lieutenant governor did a great job on the State Highway Commission. I think this money that begins this project here at the bridge can really leverage the $300 million state bond issue into real opportunities all over our state. We're just able to work with Congressman Graves and get another $22 million for bridges in North Missouri recently. We have a lot of bridges, and we have more bridges than almost any other state. They have to be taken care of. Our road system needs to weave together, and Governor Parson clearly and fully understands that and leads with that in mind.
Thank you, Senator. I think one of the things important about the Rocheport Bridge, the project we're here today, is what that really does for the rest of the state. By what we got on the federal level, what Senator Blunt was able to obtain in an INFRA grant, how much that frees us up to do a lot more projects all across the state. And I think in next year, just in probably the next year, you'll see major projects being across the state of Missouri in different areas of the state because of what we got done here today. And I think this is a perfect example of working with the legislators, working with the federal government, the state, and the local communities. If this is not the success story out of this bridge, it should be, because it's what happens when you work together to come to a common good that's really good for the people of this state of Missouri. This is not a political issue. This is about doing the right thing for the citizens of this state. And to imagine shutting this bridge down to one lane for any type of period when the economy that goes across the state of Missouri that goes on this highway would be detrimental to the state of Missouri if we don't keep it open. And right now we're going to be able to keep it open at full time, and we're just going to switch it over to the new bridge when that day comes. But the economy for our state will stay strong. There's a huge opportunity right now for the state of Missouri to lead the nation, not just follow in some aspects. And one of our key areas in this state is infrastructure, workforce development, and our location. And it's about the location and why we can build on that and be successful for the citizens of our state.